There are places on this planet where nature never imagined human beings would reach. Deadly deserts, deep oceans, eternal glaciers. But we didn't just reach them. We built cities, airports, massive tunnels, and even artificial islands. Today, you're going to discover the 10 most insane constructions ever built by humanity in places where we simply should not exist. Get ready, because what you're about to see defies all logic. We begin our journey underwater. Imagine drilling 50 kilometers through rock and clay beneath the ocean, connecting two countries separated by one of the busiest seas in the world. That is the Channel Tunnel, known as the Eurotunnel. Opened in 1994, it links the United Kingdom to France more than 100 meters below sea level. During construction, 11 massive machines called tunnel boring machines excavated simultaneously from both sides. The challenge? Meeting in the middle with millimeter precision. Any mistake and the entire project would collapse. The teams faced constant water infiltration, brutal geological pressure, and the risk of catastrophic cave-ins. Today, trains cross this underwater corridor at 320 kilometers per hour, transporting millions of passengers every year. But the tunnel never stops demanding maintenance. Water constantly presses against the walls, and pumping systems operate 24 hours a day to prevent flooding. It is a perpetual battle against the ocean, and so far, we are winning. Now we travel to the middle of the Nevada desert, where one of the most famous cities in the world should not exist. Las Vegas receives 42 million visitors per year in a place where temperatures exceed 45 degrees Celsius in the summer and rainfall barely reaches 10 centimeters annually. How is this possible? The answer lies 50 kilometers away, the Hoover Dam. Built in the 1930s during the Great Depression, it tamed the Colorado River and created Lake Mead, the largest water reservoir in the United States. That lake sustains Las Vegas, providing 90% of the city's water. But there is a massive problem. Lake Mead is drying up. Since the year 2000, the water level has dropped more than 45 meters. The marks on the rocks around the lake show where the water once stood, creating an apocalyptic landscape. Las Vegas is literally drinking its own survival. The city has already implemented strict rationing, recycles almost all of its used water, and has even banned ornamental lawns. But experts warn, if the drought continues, Las Vegas could become uninhabitable within a few decades. A billion-dollar city built on a mirage that may disappear. The next construction takes us to the top of the world. The Qinghai-Tibet Railway in China is the highest railway line on the planet, reaching 5,064 meters above sea level. To give you an idea, that is higher than Mount Everest Base Camp. Building a railway at this altitude was considered impossible for decades. The air contains 40% less oxygen, forcing workers to wear oxygen masks just to avoid passing out. But the real enemy was the permafrost, the permanently frozen ground that covers 80% of the route. The problem? When you place tracks and heavy trains on permafrost, the heat generated melts the ice and the ground literally sinks. Chinese engineers developed a brilliant solution. They elevated the tracks on special pillars that allow cold air to circulate underneath, keeping the permafrost frozen. In addition, they installed cooling pipes that extract heat from the soil. 55 kilometers of tunnels and ventilation systems ensure that the structure does not destabilize. Today, trains carry passengers from Beijing to Lhasa in Tibet in 48 hours. But inside the carriages, oxygen cylinders are always available. Many passengers suffer severe altitude sickness even while sitting down. It is a monumental technical achievement, but one that demands a price from those who dare to cross it. We return to the sea, but this time to a story of ambition and unintended consequences. Kansai International Airport in Japan was inaugurated in 1994 as a solution to the lack of space in Osaka. The idea? build a 4 square kilometer artificial island in Osaka Bay, and construct one of the most modern airports in the world on top of it. The project required 21 million cubic meters of landfill, extracted from entire mountains that were literally dismantled. 3 years of continuous work created an island where there had once been 30 meters of ocean depth. The airport was an immediate success, awarded for its futuristic design and efficiency. But soon, a catastrophic problem emerged. The island was sinking. In the first years, it sank almost 1 meter per year, far faster than predicted. The clay seabed compressed under the colossal weight of the landfill and structures. Japanese engineers had to constantly inject grout beneath the foundations and individually adjust more than 9,000 support columns. Today, the sinking has slowed to about 6 centimeters per year, but it has never completely stopped. The airport remains operational thanks to obsessive monitoring and constant intervention. It is a race against time and physics, where every passing year requires more investment to keep the island above water. Now we travel to one of the most extreme and isolated places on the planet, the Arctic. Longyearbyen is the administrative capital of Svalbard, a Norwegian archipelago located just 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. It is one of the northernmost permanent communities on Earth, where about 2,000 people live in conditions that defy all logic of human habitation. For 4 months each year, the sun never rises. For another 4 months, it never sets. Temperatures can drop to -40 degrees, and the ground is pure permafrost, frozen to depths of hundreds of meters. Building on permafrost is a nightmare. The heat from heated buildings melts the ice below, causing sinking and structural cracks. That is why all constructions stand on wooden pillars that raise the buildings off the ground, allowing icy wind to circulate underneath and keep the permafrost frozen. But the greatest challenge is not building, it is surviving. Longyearbyen has unique laws in the world. It is forbidden to die there. This is not a joke. Due to the permafrost, bodies do not decompose and must be transported to the mainland. It is also mandatory to carry rifles when leaving the city because polar bears outnumber humans in the region. And there is another fascinating detail. Longyearbyen is home to the global seed vault, the most important seed vault in the world, carved deep into the permafrost to preserve humanity's agricultural diversity in case of global catastrophe. It is literally the life insurance of global agriculture, stored in the most inhospitable place imaginable. If Longyearbyen is extreme, Antarctica is on another level. It is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth. Temperatures have reached -89 degrees Celsius, winds exceed 300 kilometers per hour, and there is no native population. Even so, about 1,500 scientists live there during the Antarctic summer, and more than 1,000 remain during the brutal winter. The research stations are true fortresses against nature. The Amundsen Scott Station, located exactly at the South Pole, was built on adjustable hydraulic pillars because the ice beneath it moves about 10 meters per year. If the station were fixed directly to the ice, it would slowly be crushed and buried. Other bases, such as McMurdo, the largest in Antarctica, function like small cities with their own generators, hydroponic greenhouses to grow fresh food, and even desalination systems to produce drinking water by melting ice. But during the Antarctic winter, these stations become completely isolated. No aircraft can land, no ship can cross the sea ice. If someone becomes seriously ill, there is no possible rescue for months. In 1999, an American doctor at the Amundsen Scott Station discovered she had breast cancer during the Antarctic winter. She had to diagnose and treat herself, performing biopsies and administering chemotherapy delivered by airdrop. She survived, but her story reveals the level of isolation and danger these bases face. We return to Dubai, this time to one of the boldest and most controversial projects ever conceived: the World Islands. Imagine creating 300 artificial islands arranged in the shape of a world map, each representing a country or continent. That is exactly what Dubai attempted. Between 2002 and 2008, massive dredgers removed 320 million cubic meters of sand from the bottom of the Persian Gulf, shaping islands that could be seen from space. The plan was to sell each island to billionaire investors who would build mansions, resorts, and exclusive properties. Some were sold for tens of millions of dollars. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit. The project froze. Today, most of the islands are completely abandoned. Worse, many are sinking. Without vegetation or permanent structures to stabilize the sand, ocean currents are slowly eroding and redistributing the material. Some islands have already lost half of their original area. Environmentalists warned from the beginning that the project would destroy marine ecosystems, alter current patterns, and cause coastal erosion. Dubai ignored them. Now the World Islands is considered one of the greatest failures of prestige engineering, a monument to the arrogance and excess of the 2000s. A world map that is literally disappearing back into the ocean. But not everything in Dubai is a failure. Palm Jumeirah, another artificial island, this time shaped like a palm tree, is a relative success. Opened in 2006, it added 78 kilometers of new coastline to Dubai, hosting luxury hotels, mansions, and the iconic Hotel Atlantis the Palm. Building a palm tree in the ocean required 94 million cubic meters of sand and 7 million tons of rock. Dredgers worked 24 hours a day for years, positioning sand with GPS precision. To protect the structure from waves, an 11-kilometer breakwater was built around the island. But Palm Jumeirah faces problems. The water between the fronds of the palm does not circulate properly, causing stagnation and algae growth. Residents complain about odors and poor water quality. In addition, the island altered coastal currents, causing severe erosion on nearby beaches such as Jumeirah Beach. Dubai now has to constantly import sand to replenish these beaches, creating an endless cycle of intervention. And there is a cruel irony. To build islands made of sand, Dubai imported sand from Australia. Why? Desert sand is too fine and unsuitable for construction or land reclamation. So Dubai, literally surrounded by sand, had to buy sand from another continent. Is it genius or madness? Perhaps both. Now we travel to Egypt, where an entire capital city is being built from scratch in the middle of the desert. The new administrative capital, located 50 kilometers from Cairo, is a $60 billion project to create a futuristic metropolis that will house 6.5 million people. The reason? Cairo is suffocating. 20 million people live in a city built for a fraction of that number. Chaotic traffic, extreme pollution, decaying infrastructure. The Egyptian government's solution was radical: abandon the historic capital and start over from zero. The new city will feature the tallest building in Africa, 21 residential districts, more than 1,000 mosques and churches, and a park 8 times larger than Central Park. Parliament and ministries are already being relocated, but the project faces brutal criticism. The cost is draining Egypt's economy, which is already struggling with 30% inflation and massive external debt. There are also doubts about its viability. Who will live there? The apartments are too expensive for ordinary Egyptians. The city is being built for an elite that may not even exist in sufficient numbers. In addition, dependence on water and energy in the desert will require colossally expensive infrastructure to sustain it. Critics call the project a ghost city under construction, a monument to political vanity that could become the largest white elephant in modern history. And we arrive at the most insane project of all, NEOM, a $500 billion futuristic megacity being built in the Saudi Arabian desert with promises that sound like science fiction. The flagship project is The Line, a linear city 170 kilometers long, 200 meters wide, and 500 meters tall, where 9 million people will live without cars, without roads, powered by 100% renewable energy. Does it sound impossible? It is. Urban planning experts call the project delusional. A linear city violates nearly every principle of efficient urban design. Travel distances would be enormous, Logistics would be a nightmare, and concentrating people in such a narrow structure would create issues with ventilation, permanent shadow, and social isolation. In addition, NEOM includes plans for Trojana, a ski resort with artificial snow in the desert, and Oxagon, a floating industrial complex in the Red Sea. The original timeline promised completion by 2030, but almost nothing has materialized. Reports indicate that workers are dying under harsh conditions, Bedouin communities have been forcibly displaced, and the real project is being quietly scaled down. NEOM is the ultimate symbol of humanity's ambition to conquer nature at any cost. But it is also a reminder, just because we can build something does not mean we should. Nature often has reasons to keep us away from certain places. And when we ignore that, we pay the price, financially, environmentally, and humanly. From Antarctica to the Arabian Desert, from the oceans to the top of the world, humanity has proven that almost nothing is impossible when there is enough will, money, and obsession. But each of these constructions reminds us, nature was not designed for us everywhere, and when we force our presence where we should not be, the bill always comes due, sometimes in the form of sinking, erosion, or drought, other times in the form of abandonment and ruin. But it always comes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most insane places where humanity dared to build, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments which of these constructions impressed you the most. See you next time.